Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of PR from the Heart's Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 257. That is the 257th trolley stop here at PR from the Heart, here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Our favorite time of the year has officially begun. It is our holiday season celebration. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart and the host of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, along with being the author of the new award-winning children's book, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, A Hospice for Children, published by Trolley Stop Publishing, joined as always by my faithful furry friend and forever companion, little Forrest, who reminds me that he is not only just my faithful furry friend and forever companion in this beautiful journey called life, but he's also my co-host on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. So, little Forrest, thank you for your one of many contributions to this particular trolley stop. There is a reason why we classify the holiday season as our favorite time of the year, and thus the holiday season celebration here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. It's the time where the lights, our inner light twinkles a little bit more, and of course we start to see some lights, some holiday lights, Christmas lights, Hanukkah lights, etc. on the external surface as well too. And I really feel, especially for those who are watching this episode in real time, we're all moving through something, especially on a collective level. We're really moving through many different things. And there's something about the holiday magic. There's something about the Christmas magic, especially too. And it goes back to one of my favorite Christmas songs. For all of you who have been around, as long as me, or if not even a little bit longer, we remember Peter, Paul, and Mary. And they had a really cool holiday Christmas special on PBS many years ago. And they had their own rendition of We Wish You a Merry Christmas. And I remember one of the lines said, "Why can't we celebrate Christmas the whole year around?" And that really stuck at me, and it has stuck inside of my heart for many years, for many decades, actually. And it always helps when we have these healthy reminders to let us know that the holiday season magic, the Christmas magic, just the magic of life can be a real thing if you choose to believe it. Believe it with a capital B in the process, and leave it to a brand new children's book to help us, remind us of all of this, especially during these very interesting times that we are living in. We encourage all of you once again, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here on episode number 257 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We also encourage all of you, if Amazon.com is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, be sure to leave your 5-star review for Dasher and the Polar Bear. It is now available. There's a reason why I turn my hand like this, because of course, if you feel guided and inclined to do so, leave that 5-star review. That lets our featured guest here know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say, for those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library or your favorite children's or independent bookstore and they do not stock their copies of Dasher and the Polar Bear, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And of course, for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, for those of you who want to not only make this a magical holiday season, but to really make 2026 the most magical year ever, you can connect with our featured guest here via his official website below to schedule your author's school visit for 2026, 2027, and beyond. He's literally just getting started. And it's always cool because with us being in the industry for now over 11 years at PR from the Heart and over 7 alone at the Children's Book Spotlight Series, we meet new neighbors for the first time after a long period of time. The trolley always likes to rack up a lot of mileage during the holiday season. We travel all the way from San Diego, from our offices across the country, to the beautiful state of Maine. Might be a little bit chilly. We'll do a little temperature check here momentarily. Joining us is our featured guest here on episode number 257 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, New York Times best-selling children's book author and illustrator, Matt Tavares. Matt, we really appreciate you spending some time with myself and little Forrest here in our neighborhood. Great to finally connect. Happy holidays to you and your family. How are things with you?
Things are good. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
For those of you who are tuning into the program for the first time, or for those who have been around and since day one, we always like to do a little bit of housekeeping before we officially begin. One of the many ways you can also pledge your support for Matt, in addition to us here at PR from the Heart and the Children's Book Spotlight Series, And especially if these messages that we are sharing about the start of the holiday season, connecting to that holiday magic, if you feel that this needs to be shared with someone in need, you can subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel, join the more than 30,000 members of the PR from the Heart family, our loyal YouTube subscribers, and again, share this very special trolley stop on your favorite social media platform of your choosing. Matt, I've been excited for this interview. I know it's been literally a long time coming, but obviously I'm a firm believer, especially when it comes to the holidays, you got to trust in that perfect and divine timing, as I like to say. You're obviously a household name in the world of children's literature. You've accomplished so much in your career, but you always come into contact with people who are just learning about your work for the first time. We're really big on origin stories here at the Children's Book Spotlight series. For those who are learning about you and your work for the first point in time, could you share with us really where it all began for you and when you knew that a large part of your mission and your purpose was meant to better the lives of children, and to do that through writing children's books and illustrating children's books?
Yeah, it really started for me. I was a studio art major in college. I went to Bates College in Maine, and for my senior thesis project, I was trying to figure out. I had to do one big project. I could spend the whole school year working on it, and at that point, I was doing a lot of. I like drawing pictures of people. I like drawing pictures that told stories, and I was trying to figure out some way I could actually draw every day as a grown-up and have that be my job. So I got the idea that maybe children's books would be something I'd want to give a try. So I spent my whole senior year writing and illustrating a book. It was called Sebastian's Ball at the time. And I found I loved doing both writing the story and illustrating it. At the time, I mostly thought of myself as an artist. I didn't really think of myself as a writer. And at first, I tried to find some old fairy tale to illustrate or some public domain poem or something, but just wasn't finding anything that really grabbed me. So I decided to try to write my own story. Um, and from there, I had a few lucky things happen where right after I graduated, a friend of mine from school realized that her cousin's best friend's mom was a children's book agent. So I got to go down to New York City or down in New Jersey where she was living, and show my work to Rosemary Stamola, who became my agent. And then she started shopping it around, and she found Candlewick Press, who actually liked it. And I went in there and had a meeting, and they basically told me they thought that this book I made as my senior project was a really good rough draft, and they wanted me to do the whole thing over again, working with an editor and an art director and kind of build it up, kind of rebuild it. But that's how I got started in children's books. I always think it's a cool thing to tell kids when I go to schools that everything I did to become an author and an illustrator is stuff that I did in school, right up to my first real book. It was, something I made for school. I didn't know it was ever going to get published. Any kids would ever read it. Just like every kid writes stories in school. That's what I did growing up. And I made that book in college, and that's how I got started. And felt pretty lucky to find Candlewick right when I did, back when I was 22 years old, I guess, when I first had my first meeting there with Candlewick. And I'm still making books with them. I'm about to turn 50, so it's been a long time.
It sounds like there's definitely been some magic that you've experienced, especially very on in your journey as well, too. We always like to be able to remind those who are tuning into the program, especially a large part of our listening audience and viewing audience, parents, educators, librarians, grandparents, but just all of us, we all go through the journey of life together. And it's very easy when you walk in your favorite children's bookstore, your favorite big box store, your favorite independent bookstore, and you see on the shelf, New York Times best-selling Matt Tavares. And people may have the misconception that life for you is rainbows and gumdrops, that that there's no problems, no difficulties at all. But we do have polarity and contrast in life. We do move through challenges, difficulties, obstacles, problems, stressors, troubles, and worries. Could you share with us, specifically speaking, what are some of the challenges and difficulties that you've experienced on your path? And what were some of the things that have really helped you to move through those challenges and difficulties to get through to the other side?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's a weird job making children's books because, it's like there are highs that make you feel like you're a celebrity and everything's amazing, and then there are times that you're just stressed about money, and there's all kinds of ups and downs and unpredictability to it. There were definitely years when I had young kids, and I'm spending all my time. You take a chance every time you're gonna, like, it takes me about a year to make a book. So if that book ends up not doing very well, I just spent a whole year on it. And then I start thinking, oh, I have a family to support. We've got a mortgage. We've got all these expenses, and that gets stressful. Um, but it's the kind of thing where I think if you kind of figure out ways to just keep working and hustling and not getting too down about a bad review or low sales or whatever, and find ways to kind of piece it all together. I mean, there were years that I had more money coming in from school visits than from book sales, and it kind of all added up to just being able to keep doing what I love to do. And then, but yeah, then when the good stuff comes along too, it's nice. Like I get to have New York Times best-selling author as part of my name now. That only means that there was one week at some point that I had one book that was in the top 10 according to the New York Times. That doesn't mean every single week I have piles of money rolling in. Um, but when Dasher first made the New York Times bestseller list, that was my 20th book, and I had been doing this for 20 years. So by that point, it felt like it felt really good, because I know that doesn't always happen. So I think I really appreciated it.
I'm really
Getting
glad
to
that you're
that point.
sharing that as well too, because it's long since been said. I think that people traditionally will use the examples of those who husk bamboo and blacksmiths, right? You keep doing your thing each and every day. If being on the East Coast, you probably remember the old school commercial jingles for Dunkin' Donuts. You wake up every day, time to make the donuts.
Time to make the donuts. Yeah.
And it's a matter of consistency is key, and being focused and being grounded is key as well too. I'm curious, what are some of the things that keep you grounded? Because I've having been in the industry for close to a dozen years on mine of things, and prior to this I was in the world of professional wrestling and hosting one of the most popular wrestling radio shows in the country. So I
Oh,
have
wow.
seen my fair share of vanity and ego. When that's kept in check, it's a good thing. But it's really important, especially now, to stay grateful and grounded and humble, because you can be on top of the world one day and you can feel like you're on the bottom of the world at the very next day. What are some of the things that have really helped to keep you grounded along your way, along your path?
Yeah, and those things could even happen on the same day sometimes. Um, for me, I think it's just a matter of like, I'm a big baseball fan. I love baseball, and I think it's a similar mentality. Like, if you're a baseball player or a baseball fan, you can't you can't let yourself ride the wave of, one day you lose 12-2, you could be devastated, or you go 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts or something. The next day you had 2 home runs. Um, you kind of look at it like it all evens out. So I think, like, making a book, if it's going to take me a whole year, I'm going to have some days where I'm in the zone, everything's going great, I love the picture I'm working on. I'm going to have some days where I just don't quite have it, where I'm just kind of, maybe I'm overtired, or things just aren't clicking. And I think it's a matter of, you kind of give it your best every day. The next day, go out and do it again. Give it your best that day. And yeah, it's like, and same thing with, like, promoting books. Like, I'll go on a tour. Um, Usually in my events, especially for the Dasher books, because they've been very popular. So I'll show up to a store, and there's a whole bunch of people there, and they're telling me that they love the book, and it makes you feel great, and it's very gratifying. But then I also have had plenty of events where um, I show up and no one's really there, and it's like maybe just people coming and going, if that. And you can kind of let yourself either feel like, hey, I'm really something special here, I had a big crowd there today, or I'm a loser, what am I doing? I just drove 2 hours to this store to sit here with this stack of books. Um, but I've kind of learned, like, it's all good. Like, whatever happens, I'm saying hi to the booksellers. I'm signing a bunch of stock. Whether we get a huge crowd or we get nobody, um, I don't let that affect how I think about myself, or my career, or any of that stuff. You kind of have to have enough confidence to know, like, I'm not going to let any of this stuff affect me too much.
Very true. And what you're sharing reminds me of a dear friend and fellow member of the PR from the Heart family, John Para. I remember when I first met John shortly thereafter, I think this was like 2018, 2019. I'll paraphrase John's words. He says, John, how lucky are we? We get to wake up every day and we get to write, illustrate, promote, publicize children's books, better the lives of children, bring parents and families and educators. Like, how cool is that? And I think
Amazing.
it's really important because there are a lot of people, especially if you're watching this episode in real time, they've been losing their jobs or they're still trying to recover from the pandemic. So knowing the fact that we really are more fortunate and blessed than we actually realize, we of course are going to be giving much love to Dasher here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series, but I also wanted to give some love to Hoops. With this being the first time that we've had the chance to connect in this fashion, I will tell you this, the number of stores that I have been to over the years, and I've seen people hold Hoops in their hand and sharing their favorite parts of the story and like, wow, this is my favorite book. I tell you, it's probably at least a couple of dozen just over the years since the story has come out. Could you share with us the experience of putting that to because it literally feels like that, not even just in terms of turning the needle with sales. It's done really well. It's accomplished a lot of awards in the process. But whenever you can do a story that's based on a true story or that is impacted by some sort of real life, and obviously your love of sports, you kind of weave that into the mix. Talk to us about that experience of what that was like to bring Hoops to life.
Yeah, that was a great experience for me. I actually started out making a nonfiction picture book. Like when I first signed up for the idea for what became Hoops, it was going to be a picture book about the real life team that inspired the story of Hoops. And once I got digging and researching and sort of into the project, it started just feeling like it just didn't feel like a picture book. It felt like there was too much I wanted to put in there, and I felt like it was a book that I thought older kids would like. And at the time, my kids were reading a lot of graphic novels, and I had started reading a lot of graphic novels, and I'd kind of toyed with the idea for a while that that's something I might want to try. And I ended up, finally getting up the nerve to tell my editor that I wanted this book to be a graphic novel. So, and Candlewick trusted me to just do this thing I'd never done before. So I spent all that time working on that book, feeling like it was so exciting in some ways because I would get into my studio here every morning, and I was just like you were saying, like how lucky I am I get to just do this. But then I would have this, terror of just feeling like I have no clue how to do this. Like there's so many pages and so many pictures, and how's it all going to fit together? So I ended up spending over 2 years on that book, and it was definitely a labor of love. And I didn't know if kids would like it, or when you're working on something, sometimes you're so deep into it, it's like you can't even tell if it's good anymore. But it's been so gratifying. It's a different audience. It's my first middle grade book. So seeing the way kids love that book, like the kids I hear from, it's more like they're fans. Like they'll tell me like I've read it 12 times. I give it to all my friends as gifts. Like it's the coolest thing hearing that. So yeah, it's been really interesting just kind of going so far outside my comfort zone where all my other books had been picture books. And for this one, I had to really kind of learn a different way to draw in that sort of more cartoony style, and different way to write and everything. I'd like to do another one. I need to think of another idea for another graphic novel.
There's the whole part of going outside of one's comfort zone, I think is really important because it's long since been said in many respects that when you go outside of the comfort zone, when it's not the time to make the donuts and doing the same monotonous thing each and every day, that's where the magic happens. I remember over 5 years ago, I made the decision to move cross country from Western New York to San Diego. And I bet on myself. And that was something that was very much out of my comfort zone. Because if we would have had this conversation, let's say 10 years ago, I just could have seen myself staying in Western New York my entire life. And in many respects, my life is transformed into like a Disney series. We'll put that little plug in that because we'll be talking about Disney as well here on the course of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Again, we are joined by New York Times bestselling children's book author and illustrator and the creator of the Dasher series. We'll be, of course, be talking about Dasher and the Polar Bear momentarily. One of our favorite times here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series is when we crack the cover and dive into the pages of the brand new children's book that we are spotlighting, featuring on the program. Matt Tavares is joining myself and little Forrest here on episode number 257 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Once again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Matt's official website, which we've included in the description below. If you head on over to Amazon.com, if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can read and enjoy your copy of Dasher and the Polar Bear or any of Matt's other amazing books. Be sure to leave the 5-star review for Dasher and the Polar Bear. That lets Matt know, that reminds him that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Dasher and the Polar Bear, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series as part of the kickoff of our holiday season celebration. And then lastly, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can schedule your author's school visits, whether it be in person or virtually remotely, with Matt, because again, as we mentioned about Peter, Paul, and Mary, why can't we celebrate Christmas and the holidays the whole year round? You can connect with Matt via his official website. We've included that again in the description below. When we have a Children's Book Spotlight Series episode, Matt, there's always at least 2 origin stories. So obviously you shared your origin story with regards to, bring yourself into the dance, into the kid lit arena, as we like to say, so to speak. I'm curious to hear about the backstory and the origin story of Dasher, because of course, growing up, if you're a certain age, you remember watching CBS and you would see Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I think it might have shifted networks to NBC, if I'm not mistaken, just recently, but you remember Rudolph and Santa. I mean, it's literally embedded in our minds and in our hearts. And I think there's many of us that would say, like, wouldn't it be great to kind of have like the new version of Rudolph? And it seems in many respects that you have struck lightning in a bottle with this, because if there is anyone in the world of children's literature that, you're obviously not trying to create the next Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? Even though Dasher was one of, Rudolph's, reindeer that helped Santa to get, all across the country and around the world to deliver toys for boys and girls. But take us to the origin stories. Really, where did this begin for you? Because again, just the success that you've had with this and just seeing the fact that it's really making a difference in the lives of children, especially around the holiday season. I'm curious, starting off with the origin story, when you knew that this particular book that then has transformed into a series, when did you know that this needed to be written and shared with children around the world?
Yeah, so for me, I wrote and illustrated the book called Red and Lulu, where the main characters are a pair of cardinals. And that was my first book where the characters were animals, which was kind of a fun new thing for me. So after I finished that book in 2017, oh no, it was 2016 when I finished the book, my editor suggested I try to come up with another story with animal characters, because she felt like it had brought out something new in my work. And she said maybe it could even be a holiday story, something to sort of tie in with Red and Lulu, sort of as a follow-up. So I started brainstorming, and sometimes I do this thing where I give myself like a day where I'm like, I treat it like it's a high school English class assignment, where I say, all right, today I have to write a draft of a story. And it sort of forces myself to come up with something. So I just spent that whole day just kind of brainstorming animals, holidays, Christmas. And basically by the end of the day, I didn't really have anything, but I came up with the idea of just reindeer. And the big idea from the day really was just Santa's reindeer are some of the most famous animals in the world, but I had never heard a story that explained how they became Santa's reindeer. I didn't know what the story was, but I was just thinking if I could come up with an origin story that takes place sometime before 1823, which is the first time they were mentioned in print, and 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? If I could somehow come up with a story that was just like, the pipe dream was really that it could become sort of the generally accepted part of the story of Christmas that kids know. So that was sort of the goal. And that was a Friday that I did that. And then literally the next day I was driving home from my daughter's basketball tournament. It's like a 10-minute drive. And I just sort of thought of the whole story of Dasher. Like I just pictured these group of reindeer. They're part of this traveling circus that was a big thing in the 19th century, where you'd see these pictures of just like all these exotic animals packed into these cramped spaces with all these people crowded around to see them. And I just picture these reindeer in this crowded pen looking up at the North Star, and Mama Reindeer could tell them that's where we're from. That's the North Pole, and tell these stories. And then Dasher, the youngest reindeer that just sees that North Star and wants to go live this different life at the North Pole. So that's really where the idea came from. It was just sort of like it was after Christmas. It was early 2017 when I came up with the idea. And yeah, that was really when it was one of those ideas. When I had the idea, I thought like, oh, this could really be something. Um, yeah, so
Being able to bring the series to life, because there are now 3 books in the Dasher series. There's Dasher, Dasher Can't Wait for Christmas, and then of course Dasher and the Polar Bear. Could you share with us, specifically bringing each book to life? It's obviously very important to enjoy the journeys. We mentioned, getting to that elusive, golden goose of becoming a New York Times best-selling creator can be like, running the marathon to get to that. But it's important that we take the time to enjoy the things along the way. What were some of the big highlights for you through the creation of each of the books, before we go a little bit more in depth about Dasher and the Polar Bear, giving the proper love and care to both Dasher and Dasher Can't Wait for Christmas? What were some of your favorite parts of creating those books?
for me, it was really just I've just had a lot of fun kind of going into my imaginary world and sort of trying to tie it together with what's already out there, but also using my imagination and trying to figure out how I could tell this story. I'd spent a decade or so making mostly nonfiction books, um, and I love doing that. But there are a lot more rules with that, where everything in the pictures, everything in the words, it all has to be true. So there's a lot of research and fact checking. Where with this, it was more kind of going into my own little world, putting on some music, and just kind of picturing, all right, what should the North Pole look like? How should I show all these different moments? And how does Dasher end up getting to the North Pole? How does she end up meeting Santa Claus? Just kind of letting my mind wander and really picturing it in my head like a movie as I'm listening to music and kind of creating all these little moments. And then with the sequels, I had never done a series before, so it was originally just the one book. I wasn't planning on any more, but once I started brainstorming and trying to think of other Dasher stories, it was so much fun diving back into those books because for each one, I had other projects in between. So I'd go back. It was kind of like returning to revisit old friends, and it kind of helped, jumping into the project. I already knew what Dasher looked like. I already knew what the North Pole looked like, and kind of just returning to this place that I have enjoyed being before. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm actually working on the 4th Dasher book right now, so I'm very much immersed in Dasher world.
That's so great to hear. And it's interesting, George is such a lovable polar bear. I remember growing up as a kid and going to the Buffalo Zoo. I was very big on the polar bears. And
Yeah.
when I go to the San Diego Zoo, like that's kind of like the first go-to. It always goes to the polar bears, so to speak. You've done such a great job with this specific story, because especially in the times in which we're living in, we might be wondering, okay, I have this dream XYZ, right? After being in the publicity side of things in the world of children's literature for over a decade, I said, okay, I've been telling myself I want to write this first children's book, get this out there, because there's many to follow. And I had to do my part to trust myself in the process of everything. So whether you're writing your first children's book, or you're just wanting to start your own business, you're wanting to become a family man for the first time, it's really important to truly believe in yourself, to truly believe in the magic. Before we talk a little bit more about that, we never like to give away the whole kit and caboodle here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. I think
Yeah.
that's an old school vaudevillian term that says we don't want to give away the whole book, because we want to encourage people to check out the book, see you on tour. We're going to be talking about that as well too. Could you give us a little glimpse in terms of, obviously there's this heartfelt connection with George and Dasher? It's got the holiday magic. one of the things that really you do the most superb job of is really if you can illustrate wonder. Wonder is this term that we hear a lot during the holiday season, like connect to wonder. What does wonder look like, sound like, and feel like? And I feel that you've done a superb job with that. So for those, whether it be, little ones who are hearing about the story or parents and grandparents and educators and librarians, what can we expect when we crack the cover and dive into the pages of Dasher and the Polar Bear?
Yeah, it's a story where Dasher the reindeer is out exploring, and she ends up meeting George the polar bear, who's a very friendly, nice polar bear. And when George finds out that Dasher can fly, he is blown away by this, and he wishes that he could fly. So Dasher kind of becomes determined to help George learn to fly. So it's really a story about Christmas magic and how Christmas magic has different meanings for different people or different animals, and it doesn't always work the same on everybody. And I was thinking about how like there's the magic you feel as a kid, which is just like you come down on Christmas morning and there's presents there and Santa came, and just that very direct magic that is like this is truly magical that this happened. But then there's also that Christmas magic of just sharing joy with others and experiencing other people, other friends, family, being able to experience the magic and helping to create that magic for others. Like as a parent, as an adult, I think that's a lot of how I experience Christmas now. Like, getting to see your kids come downstairs on Christmas morning, or getting to help create those moments for others. So that's really what the book is about, I think.
And also, I'm really glad that you weave into the story about spending time with others during the holiday season. I remember there were, many holiday seasons where the holiday seasons really weren't the best in the process, just because it was me and myself celebrating the holidays. And I knew at one point that I would have a little Shih Tzu Maltese. Forrest it took him a little while to manifest, probably about like close to 5 years. But I remember it's literally almost 3 years ago to the day where Forrest ended up coming into my life the Saturday before Thanksgiving in 2022. And I'm like, wow, like I get to celebrate the holiday season every year with someone very special to me. So knowing the fact that
Nice.
whether it be friends, family, loved ones, that we can really make the holidays that much more impactful in the process by spending quality time with the ones that we love and care about. Again, we're beginning to wind down our time with our featured guest here on episode number 257 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, New York Times bestselling children's book author and illustrator Matt Tavares, joining myself and Little Forrest as part of the kickoff of our holiday season celebration here on the program. Once again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Matt's official website. You can purchase, read, and enjoy your copy of Dasher and the Polar Bear, or any of Matt's other amazing books. We've already mentioned Hoops. We've already mentioned, of course, Dasher. Dasher Can't Wait for Christmas. And of course, the newest installment in the Dasher series, Dasher and the Polar Bear. If you head on over to Amazon.com, be sure to leave that 5-star review for Matt. That lets him know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Dasher and the Polar Bear, make that kind recommendation, not only in addition to the 5-star review, but make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. And then lastly, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents. Again, you can bring that magic into the minds and hearts of your students all year round. 2026, 2027, head on over to Matt's official website to schedule your very own author school visit, whether it be in person or remotely. And also you have the chance to see Matt on tour. Being the publicist that I am on my things, anytime that I have the chance to see friends and colleagues of mine go on tour, when we have the opportunity to help authors go on tour, really the feeling of getting this book and seeing the book in the hands of children is just one of the greatest feelings. So support Matt as he goes on tour across the country. We've also included Matt's official social media platforms in the description below, so you can check out more details on his upcoming tour in the process. Starting off with that, as we begin to wind down our time here, Matt, the fact that you get to go on tour, this is one of the things that I feel that it goes to as a healthy circle back to enjoying the experience along the way. because again, like you get the opportunity to go and travel to different states, not just in your own backyard, but you get to go to different states. You get to see children, parents, families, educators, librarians, grandparents, caregivers. What does that mean to you? Not even just from Matt Tavares, the successful children's book author and illustrator, but on a human level, on a soul level, on a visceral level, when you get to see the response and the reaction, the emotions and feelings of everyone when they hold your book or books in their hand, what does that mean to you?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it's such a gratifying thing because most of the time, when we're making books, we're just here by ourselves. And, it's a lot of solitary time that you're doing your own thing. And it's great to get out there and actually see some real people. And especially when I hear from, it's been interesting with the Dasher books because there's some familiarity already where people have the other books and they came to get the second one or now coming to get the third one. And it's such a nice thing. It's very gratifying after all the hours spent sitting here drawing by myself. It's also interesting, I think I get to travel to places in a way that I think most people don't. Like I end up going so many, you'd think just random places around the country. Like I just did some school visits in Arkansas. I live in Maine. Like I would probably never go to Arkansas, but I spent those few days in Arkansas and everyone is really nice. And the kids ask the same questions that they ask in Maine and in California. And um, there's something nice about that, I think, just getting to have some different perspective on our country and people and especially just seeing how similar kids are everywhere,
It's true.
where I think a lot of adults are kind of divided and get into their own little worlds, but kids, like I'll do the same presentations in different states and um, the kids are all like they're pretty similar everywhere. And that's kind of a nice thing to see.
You had also made the official announcement this past summer, and talk about things that will get kids excited. Children's book authors would love to, and for some it's just a pipe dream, but for others it's a matter of things taking form and shape. The fact that there's the Dasher Christmas Special that's
Hmm.
coming to Disney Junior and Disney Plus for 2026. That is, again, like if there are the benchmarks and the check boxes to check, like New York Times bestselling author, check. Getting something transformed into an animated program or an animated series on PBS Kids or Disney Plus or any of the other streaming platforms, check. How does that make you feel? Because that's something that is it's not necessarily difficult to achieve, but it's really a matter of, like, again, you use the baseball analogy, right? Like you see, we're recording this episode in real time right before the start of the 2025 World Series with the Toronto
Hmm.
Blue Jays and the LA Dodgers. And there are some players that are on the team that, have toiled maybe in the minors for a little bit and they finally get their big break. So long story short,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is that it does take time for these things to happen. Um, this may sound like the duh question, but how excited are you about that?
I am like out of my mind excited. Like I am so giddy about it. Like I try to keep my cool with all the movie people, just because like it's like I've got these weekly production meetings and I've gotten to be very involved in the whole process. But yeah, this is like a pipe dream for me that somehow is actually happening. Especially with Disney too. Like I've always been we're kind of a Disney family. I've just always loved Disney movies, and for me, that was kind of part of this pipe dream of this book from the beginning was for it to become a part of the story of Christmas that all kids know. And part of that dream was like a Disney movie. And like for years, I would even like at the beginning of Disney movies where they have the intro with the "When You Wish Upon a Star" and the castle. I would just imagine that intro fading into the North Star as the opening shot of Dasher. And now like we're doing that. Um, it's unreal. So yeah, it's and for this to actually be happening, it's like it's so many things have to go right, even from the point of like, Trustbridge Entertainment bought the rights, and then we spent a year developing it, found a director, pitching it to studios. Like so many things had to come together.
It's a
Um,
process. Yeah.
Yeah, like even after, like I have lots of author friends who have had their story optioned, and that's exciting. But then there's like for it to actually get made and released, um, it's kind of a miracle that it's happening. But yeah, I'm just kind of soaking it in. It's another thing where, just the fact that I've been doing this for 25 years, I know this doesn't just always happen. So
Correct.
I'm just kind of like really just, you know, making the most of it and soaking in every bit of it that I can and doing everything I can to contribute to making it as good as it can be. The people I've been working with are so awesome. Like I've loved the whole process. But that'll be coming out in 2026. It's still hard to picture it being a real thing that's out in the world because it's kind of been my fun little secret project for a while now. It's been over 2 years since the beginning of it. But it's getting there.
Well, this is a perfect segue here because we always love to provide, if possible, useful information in the form of tips, tools, and strategies for parents and caregivers and grandparents and educators that they can immediately extract when watching a children's book spotlight series episode and implement it immediately into their own lives and the lives of others, especially the children in their lives. Knowing the fact we've talked about specific things between the connection of childlike wonder and not giving up. And I feel that, one of my favorite, and I always mention this so many times, and one of my favorite Christmas movies is the legendary Scrooged, which is of course, we think of Bill Murray. We remember him as Francis Xavier Cross. And he even said, there are people that are having difficulties achieving their Christmas miracle, so to speak.
Hmm.
What are some ways in which we can do our part, especially for those who are moving through some challenging times, whether it be us as adults, whether it be our children are moving through some difficult times? What are some simple ways that come to mind that we can really do our part to connect with the magic of the holidays and in the process create even more magic in our lives for ourselves and for the lives of those whom we love and care about?
That's a tough one. I mean, I guess for people like us who write stories, I feel like that's something I can do is um, write stories and make my books. And I hear from people that it brings them joy at the holidays, that, you're providing a book, which is something that brings families together, whether it's parents and kids reading together at nighttime or families reading Christmas books on Christmas Eve. Hopefully it brings a little bit of joy um, into people's lives. A couple of my books, Dasher and Red and Lulu, are printed in Ukrainian. And I've heard from so many people in Ukraine, like writing me Instagram messages, thanking me for my stories, that it brought them so much peace during this, unthinkably hard time. And what a crazy thing, like I'm sitting here by myself in Maine making up these little stories, and then there's someone in Ukraine who reads my story and it brings them joy in the holidays, during all the crazy stuff that they're living through. So yeah, I feel like, I mean, we all try to do our little whatever we can to make the world a little better, and I feel like that's the thing that I can do, is just do what I know how to do, and hopefully that brings puts a little goodness out into the world.
Being our most authentic selves and allowing our own inner light to shine bright, that really is the best thing that we can do, because it really has that ripple effect, that positive snowball effect, so to speak. If for those who are watching right now on the East Coast or different parts of the country and you're experiencing snow right now, we always close out every children's book spotlight series episode in two forms and fashions. We're big fans of Mr. Rogers here on the program. In case you haven't heard the
Hmm.
reference of Neighbor several times, we remember the late Fred Rogers, of course, the host of the long-running popular children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And he always did his part, and he differed in different ways, most notably on the Neighborhood, Matt. But whenever he spoke in front of college students, college commencement speeches, talks across the country, he also did this when he visited sick children in hospitals all across the country, most notably when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmys before he passed from stomach cancer. And he always kept the time, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a full minute. He always encouraged us to remember those who helped love us into being. And that
Hmm.
was his way of saying, remember those people who brought more magic into our lives when maybe we didn't feel that magic was possible, so to speak. Who are some of the people that you would like to publicly recognize here on episode number 257 of the Children's Book Spotlight series that have helped love you, Matt Tavares, into being?
Oh, so many. My parents have always been very um, encouraging and made me feel like this was something I could actually do. Where I think a lot of kids who want to be art majors, that kind of scares their parents, and they want to make sure they are also a double major in something more practical where you could actually get a job. But my parents always just made me feel like I could do this. Um, so many people, in my career, my editor, Katie Cunningham, who passed away earlier this year, she was my editor for 17 years, and she kind of helped push me in lots of new directions that, as I'm working on this movie, I feel like I wouldn't be doing this without her. Um, yeah, I've been very lucky just to have some really great people along the way who've helped kind of push me in new directions.
It's and I'm really glad that you had mentioned Katie's name as well too. Paraphrasing Fred's words, it's long since been said that whether those individuals are near or far, whether they're still with us walking this earthly plane, or whether they're shining down, that undoubtedly they're smiling on you, Matt, knowing the indelible impact that you're continuing to make on children, parents, and families and educators. And again, as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. Fittingly enough, we're also huge fans of Disney as well here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. As you know, there is something very special about the Disney magic. It reminds us that we have the ability to bring to form and shape our dreams, our desires, our goals, our ambitions, that we have the ability to fulfill our own wishes. And in turn and in kind, we have the ability to bring to form and shape, or if anything, help to inspire those in our lives to bring their dreams, their desires, their goals, their ambitions to fulfill their own wishes. So we go back to the year 1992, great year. We remember the late Robin Williams, who voiced the iconic Genie of the Lamp in Disney's beloved animated classic Aladdin. Yep. Since day one here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, this Genie Lamp goes with us literally wherever we go, Matt. So we have a little segment that we like to call Three Wishes. You have given freely from your heart for many years to, again, children, parents, and families, and educators, and librarians, and then some, so to speak. So this is your chance to receive. So you're being given three wishes, Matt. Whenever anyone comes in the program, they're like, wait a minute, I thought this was an interview, and all of a sudden now I'm getting three wishes. This is just
three wishes. Okay.
This is just a super cool added on bonus. So I think the only automatic disqualifiers: you can't make someone fall in love with you. That has to happen organically. And you can't ask for more wishes. But these wishes, they can be for yourself. They can be for the children of the world. They can be for the collective, the whole, so to speak, for the planet. What would your three wishes be?
Oh my goodness, I got to think of three wishes. I mean, is world peace too generic? Like, that would be nice.
No,
if
a lot of people come on the program and say world peace, but the more we
end all the wars, end the starvation, no starving children. That would be good. So that's two, I guess. Geez, I don't know. I feel like I'll save the third one just in case.
I was just going to say, there is, we do give that little courtesy here at the program, where, like, if it's a matter of, you know what, now you can just go back and say, okay, you know what, I remember doing the interview with John on the Children's Book Spotlight series, and you could be like, the night before Christmas, and all of a sudden you get that third.
I'll email you if I think of a good one, and then you let the lamp know.
We will 100% know, and it's long since been said that when one's wishes come from one's heart, that they have a greater chance of coming true. One of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature. It is similar and akin to, if you're big movie buffs, if you were a big movie buff in the 80s and 90s, you remember the late Siskel and Ebert. When they loved the movie, they gave it 2 thumbs up. Well, one of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature for now 3 years running is when little Forrest gives 2 paws up for a brand new children's book that we're spotlighting and featuring here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. Little Forrest and I have had the opportunity to read Dasher and the Polar Bear cover to cover, and Little Forrest proudly gives 2 paws up for Dasher and the Polar Bear.
Excellent.
Little Forrest, thank you for your contribution, as always, of many to the Children's Book Spotlight series. It's not like winning an Oscar, but it's actually much cuter than winning an Oscar or a Grammy in any way, shape, or form. When we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. But first things first, raise your hand if you have had fun On episode number 257 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, we see hands up from Matt, hands up from myself, paws up from little Forrest, hands up from the little ones on screen. As we like to say, that means mission accomplished, job well done. If these messages that we have shared through the course of our time here together in our neighborhood, the messages found on episode number 257 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, found within the pages and the heart of Dasher and the Polar Bear, as well as the rest of Matt's stories, if they've inspired you, if they've lifted your spirits, if anything, you now know that you are worthy of that Christmas magic. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for Matt, in addition to us here at PR from the Heart and the Children's Book Spotlight Series. If you haven't had the chance to do so, subscribe to our official YouTube channel. Join the more than 30,000 members of the PR from the Heart family, our loyal YouTube subscribers. And again, share this very special trolley stop that you have just enjoyed, episode number 257 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Once again, you can head on over to Matt's official website, which we've included in the description below. You can also head on over to Amazon.com as well. Be sure to leave a 5-star review if you feel guided and inclined to do so for not only Dasher and the Polar Bear, but also Dasher and Dasher Can't Wait for Christmas. Those 5-star reviews let Matt know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. Keep the conversation going and flowing, as we like to say here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We've included Matt's social media platforms, the links to those in the description below, so that you can find out where you can see Matt on his tour that is crisscrossing the country. Of course, over the course of the coming weeks ahead, if you are watching this episode in real time, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Dasher and the Polar Bear or any of Matt's works, be sure to make that kind recommendation. You can let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series to stock Dasher and the Polar Bear. And of course, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can schedule your author's school visits for 2026 and beyond with Matt by connecting with him via his official website below as well. Because remember, that magic of the holidays can be felt all year around, not just in November and December. Of course, there are many more magical trolley stops to come here on the program as we're just getting started with our holiday season celebration. If you are a children's author or a middle grade author and would love to share your inspiring story in a forthcoming edition of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, you know where to connect with us. But if you don't, head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. Instagram, Facebook, and X, all at PR from the Heart. A little tip of the cap, we mentioned Mr. Rogers, so of course we always love to mention the sister program of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. Now for close to 5 years, we're very, very, very excited, very privileged and honored to review children's books each and every month, to deliver heartfelt reviews of the newest and best children's books in the world of children's literature with the iconic David Newell, who of course played the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So if you are a children's author and would love for David and I to deliver a heartfelt review of your new children's book on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast in 2026, head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms on screen. And then lastly, full pun intended, many authors' journeys are taking flight, not even just this holiday season, but especially for 2026. As Matt knows, we here in the world of children's literature, we like to plan ahead. We always do that here at PR from the Heart. We've been very blessed and fortunate over the years to be of service to some of the top names in the industry, from celebrities like the iconic Sharon Lois and Bram. You remember Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, Skinnamarink Doo. We love you, in addition to John Parra and Catherine Roy, and those authors whose journeys are just beginning. If you are a children's author looking for dedicated PR publicity support to create a citywide book media tour or a national book media tour, head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com. And again, let us see how we can be of service to you, as we are now fully immersed in our 12th year of service to children's authors across the country and around the world in the world of children's literature. Again, one final time, head on over to Matt Tavares' official website. We've included that in the description below. You can head on over to Amazon.com if you haven't had the chance to do so. Leave the 5-star review if you feel guided and inclined to do so for Dasher and the Polar Bear. If you head on over to your favorite children's or independent books, or your favorite local libraries, they are the pillars of our community, by the way, as we like to say here on the program. If they do not stock their copies of Dasher and the Polar Bear, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the program. And then lastly, again, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, and school superintendents, you know what to do. Bring more magic into the minds and hearts of your students. You can head on over to Matt's official website to schedule your very own author school visit and enjoy the experience of seeing Matt on tour as well. We want to thank you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight series, for your continued support of children's authors and middle grade authors and illustrators across the country and around the world, such as Matt Tavares, who again are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books, for your continued support of the pillars of our community, local libraries and children's and independent bookstores. But above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. Lastly, one final time, we always feel his presence and spirit whenever we do a children's book spotlight series episode each and every week, and whenever we're of service, whenever we're here in our office each and every day. Did you know that Mr. Rogers weighed 143 pounds during the course of his natural adult life? Now, you might be wondering, little Forrest, Matt, why are you mentioning Fred Rogers' natural weight while you are fading to black? Well, there's a reason why we're mentioning this. In many respects, Fred, in his own private numerology, knew what he was doing. He always communicated how we're loved and we're special just the way that we are. Well, it's a little tip of the cap. It's that friendly reminder for Mr. Rogers, as well as thanks to little Forrest and Matt for spending some quality time with us here in our neighborhood. And again, it's a little tip of the cap to the late Fred Rogers. We like to keep his memory alive as much as we can. We share our favorite 3 numbers in closing of 243. There's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. So we are reminding you of your inherent worth and your inherent value. We are reminding you that you are whole, that you are healthy, that you are complete, that you are loved, that you are special just the way that you are. That George and Dasher are reminding you as well that you have the ability to connect to that magic within you and see that beautify into your external realm this holiday season and beyond. So once again, for little Forrest, for Matt Tavares, and for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you for spending some quality time with us here in our neighborhood as we kick off the holiday season celebration at PR from the Heart, thanks to our friends and neighbors at Candlewick Press. So again, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.
Thanks, John.